This week on Dear Rabbi, what is the difference between the main branches of Judaism? I am assuming that you're referring to the three main branches of Judaism: Orthodox, Conservative, and Reform. Orthodox Jews believe that God revealed himself at Mount Sinai and gave the Jewish people the Torah. Because the Torah was divinely written, we believe that it is completely binding. We have a written law and an oral law. The oral law, was eventually written down into what became the Talmud and is now the Code of Jewish Law. So today, together with the written law and the oral law, we have the Halacha, which is Jewish law. The word Halacha literally means to walk or to go, and it's the path with which Jews go, trying to keep the Torah as it was given by God at Mount Sinai, and as Jews have kept since our inception as a people over 3,000 years ago. I will say, just as a disclaimer, I'm not, nor do I claim to be an expert in Reform Judaism or Conservative Judaism, and you can talk to conservative or Reform rabbis to get more information about those movements. From my limited understanding, the Reform movement was established in the 1800s in Germany and eventually made it over to America. The Reform movement, as the name implies, sought to change and reform Judaism. They wanted Judaism to be this evolving thing that would allow Jews to be accepted among their non-Jewish brothers. And in doing so, they actively reformed Judaism by taking certain things out and making certain changes. In Reform Judaism, Halacha is not binding, and all of the laws and mitzvot are really more like ethical suggestions. They believe that the Torah was divinely inspired, but not divinely written. And because of that, the laws are not binding. If there's a certain law that seems to make sense to me, and it feels like something that I can use to make my life better, then I'll keep it. And if it's not, then I won't. That is, I think, the basis of the Reform movement. The Conservative movement was an outgrowth of the Reform movement. After the Reform movement ordained their first graduating class in their institution, the Hebrew Union College, they held a celebration at the end of the ordination, which has been dubbed the Treif Banquet in Cincinnati. And at this meal, they served frog legs and clams and all kinds of non-kosher foods and milk and meat together as a way of showing this new form of Judaism. There were many people in attendance and those who heard about it who felt like they had gone too far. And because of that, they established their own seminary known as the Jewish Theological Seminary, which began ordaining rabbis in a more conservative movement. I've heard, again, I don't know who said this or if it's even true, but at least the way I heard it is that the conservative movement agreed with what the Reform movement was doing. They agreed in theory to the values and ideas of the Reform movement, but felt like it should be done gradually. The quote that I have in my head, I don't know where it came from, is that Judaism should evolve so gradually that the participants don't even recognize that it's changing. And that's exactly what the conservative movement has done. It sees itself, by definition, as a halachic movement, but there's a lot more wiggle room in changing and interpreting and understanding halacha than we find within Orthodoxy. And because of that, the conservative movement has evolved over time and continues to evolve even as we speak. So those are the three main denominations of Judaism: Orthodoxy, the Reform movement, and the conservative movement. If you are a wondering Jew, and there are questions that you would like us to address here on Dear Rabbi, feel free to submit them so we can tackle your questions in a future episode. You can send those questions to dearrabbi@joidenver.com. So thank you so much and have a wonderful, curious day.